Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Live It Up, the show where we explore and discuss how to take your life to that next level and beyond. We cover health, wealth, relationships, and how to create a life that really feels good because, after all, that's ultimately what we all want. We want to feel good. I'm your host and coach, Fletcher Ellingson. Amy will be with us today on the health segment portion of the show. Today we're going to be discussing anxiety. Do you know anybody who deals with it? Maybe you deal with it. If so, stick around and let's find out some of the causes and some of the ways we can treat it effectively. Health is the first wealth, so stick around for the conversation. But before we get to that, I want to remind you that if you have questions that you'd like us to answer on or off the show, you can email them directly to me at fletcher@fletcherellingson.com. You don't need to suffer. There are answers, there are solutions, and ways to get unstuck and move forward powerfully. And speaking of moving forward powerfully, let's get to some coaching. Today's email is from a mother who would like to be free from worrying. She says, Fletcher, I'm a chronic worrier. I worry about everything. I worry I will be late or that I will be too early. I worry that I may say something embarrassing or something that offends someone. I worry that my kids are not going to succeed in school or that my grown children are not going to be able to find a good paying career. I worry that my husband will get tired of me and find someone else. I worry a lot and I want to stop. It's loud in my mind. It's exhausting. And I don't know why I do it. I've tried to stop, but I haven't been able to, and I'd love it if you could suggest something to help me stop this behavior. Signed, MT. Well, MT, thanks for reaching out. Reaching out is a sign of strength, and that means you are strong. You're dealing with a very common challenge, and so many other people deal with chronic worrying. I heard you say, I don't know why I worry so much. Well, the answer to that is twofold. First of all, you're simply really practiced at it. You're super practiced at it. In fact, you don't even have to intentionally think about it. Your mind goes into worry mode without your permission, without your approval, without your consent. It's not that you think, let's see, what can I worry about? Or should I worry about this or that? No. You've done it so much that you've programmed your mind to worry all the time, whether you want to or not. Now, the second reason you're worrying is because, are you ready for this? I really want you to hear this. You're worrying because you don't trust that life is working out for you. You're worrying because you don't trust that life is working out for you. You don't trust that you can handle it. You don't trust that you're resourceful, capable, and flexible. So please hear me in the spirit that this is intended. Life is working out for you. You are alive. You have a family, as you indicated, and life is literally working out for you in the fact that you are alive. And that's where you start. In fact, speaking of starting and stopping, I want to share this idea with you. You actually can't stop anything. I'll say that again. You can't stop anything. And I'll give you an example. Let's say I have this coffee cup in my mug. And I want to stop holding it. I actually can't stop holding it. Well, you'll say, well, of course you can. You just let go of it. Yes, I can let go of it. But understand that letting go is not stopping holding it. Letting go is beginning a new action. Letting go is the beginning of something new. And when I begin doing something new, the old thing that you wanted to stop ceases to exist, but I'm actually not stopping. I'm beginning something new. And some of you may be saying, well, Fletcher, you're splitting hairs. Stay with me. Not really splitting hairs. But I want you to forget the notion of stopping all the worrying. And what I want you to do is to start noticing every little thing that is working out for you and your family. Everything. Okay? I want you to notice that you've got food in the fridge, that you've got a stove on which to cook it, that you've got clothes to wear, that you have a roof over your head. I want you to notice that everything that has been working out for you, right? That you got married, that you had kids, that you've got money in your account. I want you to notice over and over and over everything that is going well in your life and where life is working out for you, so that you can begin to trust that life has worked out for you, is working out, and will continue to work out. And then I want you to take it one step further. I want you to start celebrating. This is such a cool concept. Do you want to experience less worry? Well, wouldn't it feel wonderful? Wouldn't it feel delightful to have less worry in your life? Well, the way to do that is to start doing something else. You start doing something else. And celebrating is a wonderful place to start. Start celebrating all the little things. Raise a glass every meal to what feels good, to what worked out, to where you see beauty in life. Share it with your family. Make it start a new ritual in the evenings at dinner where everyone talks about what's going well, right? Remember, you can never stop anything, but you can start doing something else. And in doing something else, there's not room for that old thing that you used to do. MT, I want you to become someone who appreciates and celebrates every single day. And think of modeling this to your family. Wow, what a gift. I want you to know that I appreciate you and your willingness to reach out. I know you can do this, and I believe in you. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back with Amy after the commercial break. Welcome back to the show. We are here, and hey, we got Amy back in studio.
Yeah.
We're both in black. We are back in black. Feels good to be back, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's fun to be back here.
Hey, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking about anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of came up because I see a lot of it, and even more than I used to.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the questions. I've heard you mention you've been seeing a lot more of it. So tell me about that.
Yeah, because I think when you asked me the other day, so what kinds of patients did you see? I mean, in a given day, I usually see at least a couple. So, so I was going to say that, I looked it up, and so I guess during the COVID pandemic, so I've been noticing more of it. So during the COVID pandemic, I guess the data says about 4 out of 10 U.S. adults have been reporting symptoms of anxiety or depression. And that the previous year, before COVID, it was 1 out of 10. So it's gone up a lot.
Yeah.
And that is why I'm seeing a lot. And the increase in anxiety seems to be more pronounced in young adults, like in the age of 18 into the mid-20s. And I've been seeing a lot more of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in the introduction for today's episode, I was talking about worry. What's the difference between worry and anxiety?
Well, I think it's all on a spectrum, and of course we all have times when we feel worried. I mean, it's not an uncommon feeling to have, but if that worry kind of taking that to the next level is when you may feel anxious, because once you feel anxious, then there's kind of like that nervousness. Maybe you get the physical symptoms of your palms are sweating, and you might feel fearful. Your mind doesn't really want to stop. And so that might be a little different than am I running late or something? That might be different than being anxious. And then for it to become a disorder, it would be that you're having symptoms that are lasting at least 6 months, and they are impacting the quality of your life or your ability to perform in your life. There's also a condition that we sometimes see called an adjustment disorder, where that's in relationship. It's more of a short-lived issue, where someone may have, a big change in their job, divorce, loss of a loved one, and that can lead to anxiety in the form of an adjustment disorder.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wanted to say one thing about worry.
Yeah.
Because, in coaching with my clients, we'll talk about worry frequently, and we will use the definition. Worry is a biological and emotional response to something that is not happening or that hasn't happened yet. And I like that definition a lot because it kind of brings in a neat perspective, I'm worried about something that hasn't happened yet. And then what I heard you saying was just the intense focus on that over and over and over and over again. That's when it can become kind of a disorder.
Yeah, I think that, most of the time, as we all know, again, this isn't necessarily what I talk about with my patients, but our minds, the way we evolved is we are an alert and an aware creature, and so we want to anticipate what might happen next and what's about to happen. And because we don't have our own lives to worry about usually anymore, like whether we're going to die or be killed by an animal or whether we're going to starve, we then put that same attention and focus onto things like, am I going to see Sally at the office today? Or, what's my grade on my exam going to be? Or am I going to lose my job in a year? Or can I pay my bill? Like stuff that you then, you put that same intensity of focus on and then the problem is it doesn't help.
Right.
It doesn't help you make any decisions when you're in that state. It actually hinders your decision-making ability. And so that's where it becomes, kind of breaks down.
Yeah. So how often do you see people in your clinic? How often do people come and see you for this?
I see people every day, at least one a day, probably at least 2 a day, where people I'm either diagnosing them with, they're bringing up new anxiety, or they are being actively treated for an anxiety disorder, or what I feel like I'm seeing more and more is we give people those reviews. It's called a review of systems, and they fill it out before their visit, and depression and anxiety are on there, and it's just like, have you had these symptoms in the last 2 weeks? And so many people are checking off anxiety, even when they're coming in to see me for like ear pain or something. So it's just something that's just more and more common.
Yeah. So can you tell us what's happening in the body when people are suffering from it?
Yeah, that question it's kind of what's happening in mind and body. And so in the brain with anxiety, you're mostly talking about serotonin imbalance, where there may not be enough serotonin or it's not working effectively. And that's why the medications we use for anxiety disorder they increase the amount of serotonin that's at the synapses in the brain. And in the rest of the
I want to pause there for a second, because
Yeah.
I think it's just so fascinating. I really want people to get what you're focused on is triggering the chemistry in your brain.
Yeah, so you can release your own serotonin, and you can release your own oxytocin. That's like why exercise, even why taking deep breaths, even looking at a horizon releases oxytocin in our body, where so much of what we do all day is kind of like this. Even just looking up, being around nature, all those things can release those neurotransmitters that are really feeling good in our brains.
Yeah, that reminds me, I know we're getting a little off topic, but we'll circle around, but like when people have that experience of going out and hiking, or maybe they're in the woods or at the beach, and then they say, oh my gosh, I just feel so good. Like they're literally physically feeling good because of the chemistry that's being released. Is that accurate?
Yeah. It puts you in a physical state of being.
Yeah.
So, because in the rest of the body, when someone's having anxiety, what's really happening is their sympathetic nervous system, the one that's involved in the fight or flight response, that has been stimulated, and they're having a hard time kind of calming that down. So people, again, will have the sweaty palms, they might feel restless, nervous, have a hard time concentrating, not being able to stop their worry, having issues with sleeping or eating, and then that can even escalate to where someone has panic attacks. Again, in the last couple weeks, I had these people that were 2 different patients, otherwise healthy people, that were feeling short of breath. And it's like, to a doctor, you're like, are you short of breath because of this? And they were having some chest pain. And it's like, is something going on? And in both of these instances, it turned out once they got started on medication, which is what they needed for their anxiety, those symptoms just completely went away. After they had workups for it being something else, it just completely went away with that. So people will actually feel, it's called during a panic attack, it's literally described as feeling an impending sense of doom, which really means that you feel like you're going to die. And that's actually a panic attack. So it is all generated from this chemistry that's out of whack in your body.
Whoa, that does not sound enjoyable at all.
No, it's scary for people, for sure.
Yeah, that's why I can understand why they get so freaked out if they're having this sense of impending doom.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
But we're going to be back with more with Amy right after this. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. We're here with Amy. We're talking about anxiety because a lot of people are dealing with it. But what we want to spend the rest of the show talking about is how do we treat it? So let's talk about you mentioned lifestyle changes. How does that pertain, in various things we talked about on the show, you always bring it back to lifestyle changes. How does that apply to this?
Yeah, it for sure makes a difference for mental health issues, lifestyle changes. There's so many interventions that you can do to help with anxiety. It's almost, I feel like I could talk about it for an hour. I mean, one thing that can play a role, which maybe seems obvious, is your diet, because everything we eat affects how we feel and it affects our brain chemistry like we were talking about. So eating a healthy diet, one that's low in sugar, low in processed foods, one that has little to no alcohol, and then the things that you would want in there would be lots of vegetables, whole grains, lots of water, other healthy foods. That really can make a big impact, because if you're living on like caffeine and sugar, that's going to affect how you feel, and it's going to affect how your brain is processing and even your mood. Getting regular exercise is a really healthy way to kind of discharge some of that physical energy, because sometimes you can tell when you're worried about something. Sometimes you just feel like you have this like physical energy you just need to get rid of.
Right.
So going for a walk, getting outside, it also changes your focus. It has you look at other things. That completely changes your body chemistry as well. So I think people that are dealing with anxiety, doing some sort of exercise 3 times a day, even if it's a 10-minute walk, or even if you're doing jumping jacks or push-ups or something like that, where you're expending some of that physical energy, really makes a difference.
I want to pause there too.
Yes.
Because when you just said, get exercise 3 times a day, my mind, and I'm assuming some of the people listening are like, really? Come on. I'm hard-pressed to get exercise once a day. But I really want them to hear what you said. It could just be literally jumping jacks. It could just be, It's just getting up out of your chair and walking. Tell them what you do during your lunch hour.
Well, yeah, I usually walk for, maybe 10 minutes. I go for a brisk walk, and I look outside, I feel the sun, I take deep breaths, and I walk fast, and it just totally changes my focus, it just resets you.
Yeah, and it also kind of brings to mind, I'm thinking of little kids, like when they're in the house all day and they're like starting to go stir crazy, and you're like, we got to get these kids outside and discharge some of this energy.
Yeah,
right?
we have that energy too. We just, I think, have forgotten it.
Exactly, yeah.
Getting a good night's sleep is really important. I know that can be an issue for some people, so one of the things that you can Google is called sleep hygiene. There's all kinds of science on how to get a good night's sleep. There's help out there, because that's really important for your brain to get that downtime and to go through those normal sleep cycles so it can reset for the day. I think we all know if we're sleep deprived, we tend to be more emotional. We tend to not be able to concentrate as well. We just don't think as clearly.
Yeah.
Like this morning, because you woke me up way too early. Like one morning I could sleep in, he wakes me up. Meditation and breathing exercises are also really helpful. And I think people that are having issues with anxiety, I recommend, again, 3 times a day. But what I'm talking about is like 1 to 5 minutes where you do deep breathing. You can listen to something. If you're a beginner, you should listen to something. I think it really helps. Just like even that Bradley Morris, he has a couple 2-minute meditations, and there's like drums and cool things, and just takes you through something. You can find them on YouTube. But basically what I feel like that what the meditation does is people also say well, I can't meditate, I can't do deep breaths when I'm really anxious. Well, I get that because you're at a 10. But if you did the meditation relaxation exercises 3 times a day, don't try to do it when you're at a 10. Do it when you're at your normal level, whatever that may be. But then if it brings your nervous system down a few notches, then it's not going to hopefully get to that 10. So it'll help you just kind of get increase that parasympathetic nervous system tone and not let you get so high.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in here and say, one of the things I tell my clients is to practice when it's easy.
Yeah.
So don't wait till things have escalated. Begin a practice of mindfulness or meditation or simply calming your mind when it's easy. That might be 5 or 10 minutes in the morning. Like I know you are really good about meditating every day, and you usually do it in the mornings. And nothing has happened yet.
Yeah.
Right? So it's easy to do. But that sets the tone for the day, and it sets a wonderful practice.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, especially during this last year, I definitely had people share that they've had to take a break from the news. So whatever it is, if it's not the news, it might be something else that you kind of you can tell every time you read about it, every time you hear about it, you react to it. If you don't actually need to be paying attention to that, like for your livelihood or for the sake of some other reason where you really need to know all the details, then you should take a break and limit yourself, or you limit yourself. I mean, you did that where you had to limit how much time you spent, or I'm not going to go on any dives into anything, because you just end up not feeling good, and it really doesn't make a difference.
Right. Yeah, I'll speak to that too. When I was reading the news every day, afterwards I just didn't feel good. I felt anxious. I felt upset. Right. I felt disappointed, and then several years ago I realized, like, oh, I want to stay informed.
Yeah.
But especially reading the news in the morning, not a good idea. That's not the way I want to start my day. So I began to do it later on in the day.
Yeah, I mean, and I can actually read the news in the morning and have no problem with it, but he couldn't. And so it's just individual. You know, some people can read and just like big picture and they're fine. Other people not. So it's just, if you know it kind of makes you upset, then really limit it unless you need to do it. So
Yeah. Okay. If the anxiety is at such a place where lifestyle doesn't seem to be cutting it, what's next?
Yeah, so the counseling is always huge. I think that people who have tended to be anxious their whole lives, the only chance really that you're going to have about breaking that cycle is either to work with a coach like Fletcher, who's very effective what you do at breaking people's cycles of their thinking, or getting counseling. There's also counselors that are very effective at that actually help you break that cycle that you keep looping through. And then medication. So usually the medication we use for anxiety are the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors like Prozac, Paxil, Celexa, Lexapro. They are very, very, very effective for anxiety. Again, these two people that I recently saw that had different, they don't know each other, but they'd both been in the ER for different reasons. I started them on medication, and it's really within a week for anxiety. I mean, even sometimes within a few days. People have described to me that their brains were just going, and then they get on the medication and their brains just slow down, and not in a bad way, but they just slow down. And the other feedback someone gave me the other day, it was like, it's not like the problems aren't still there. You still have things you have to deal with. But what happens when you get so deep in this anxiety that you just can't cope with anything anymore, and everything seems overwhelming and you're unable to even cope.
Yeah.
And so the medication helps you kind of you work kind of in this tunnel vision with your anxiety, and it helps expand your view and be able to take care of what you need to take care of, like work, be in relationships, take care of your body. You know, people sometimes aren't able to do exercise or eat well or do any of that when they're kind of just so focused on not feeling good. So medications usually work quite well. And people, can be on them, we usually say at least 6 months, sometimes a year. And then you can try coming off of them. That's no big deal. You do that just with the assistance of your doctor, so you don't have any withdrawal symptoms. It doesn't take long. You can come off, see how you feel.
Yeah, great. An opportunity to reset.
Yeah.
And I like what you said. It's all about feeling good. So I'm just going to plug this for if you are looking to feel better, have more fun and feel good experiences in your life, stop by my website. It's all about the practice of feeling good. And I believe that is the way to transform your life, and I believe it's the way to transform our world, is the practice of feeling good. And with that, I'm going to say it's time now to get out there, be a source of kindness, be a source of contribution. You have something to offer this world, and we believe in you.